So it should be recording. Welcome to the council table for April 1st. No fooling. April 1st, 2026. We have a great lineup today because today we have Mark Shattuck, a good friend of mine. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. Before I do, let me give you a little bit of expectation for today. I've already taken a little bit of Mark's time with some of our kind of just warming up the room, as I call it. Um, we may go past the 1:30 Eastern time, and you're welcome to stay past that, but the recording will keep going as we go into Q&A. Ask you if you're new to this, and there's a person I see on the screen called AUGSMC. I don't want to say, I'm not sure if that's your name or that's a group of letters. But anyway, if you'll put your email in the chat so that at the when I get the recording, what I typically do, usually by Friday, maybe Saturday, depending on my week, I'll send a collection, or not a collection, but a connection email that will connect everybody together, and you're free to connect to one another. All I ask you to do is do it with honor as you speak to one another and connect with one another. Like Charlotte may have a thought for you, or Laura Lee, which, by the way, Laura Lee, I hope you're going to be able to stay on for prayer, because I know you're going to be going to Italy soon for the gallery over there, and
Thanks.
we'd love to pray for you for that.
Thank you.
But anyway, if you put your email in there, if I don't have it, so that we can connect you, and that's what I like to do. That's part of the deal here, is for you to connect later. We do have prophetic prayer afterwards. Don't be scared by the word prophetic. It's just you delivering a message from God to somebody else. Simple. We're going to make it simple for you. So anyway, stay on for that if you can, and then we'll close out when everybody's done. So, but I'll stay on until the end for that. We good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mark Shattuck. Mark and I have known each other at least 15 years, if not more. We were both in the same industry area of real estate. He's a custom home architect. Was in the construction industry. I used to have a construction firm called Blaine Construction. Did that for 20 years, mostly in the commercial side. But then I got into the residential in the latter parts of my construction thing. Ended up building and managing a couple of homes that were pretty stunning to me. I'd never been around that kind of opulence. One was a $50 million home on 70 acres. We built a lake, and then he loved golf, so we built like what's called Amen Corner of the Augusta National. If you're familiar with the Masters golf. So we built that out, replicated it, made it look just right. He had a bowling alley in the bottom. We had a 26-seat theater in his basement. I shouldn't call it a basement. Sorry, lower level.
Terrace level.
Yeah, there you go. But Mark is just killing it. He's let him share a little bit about that. But he'll be. What I love about Mark is it's kind of like architecture. Yeah. I want to go to do the stuff for God. And but some of the people that he's worked with, and but he just takes it in easily, and just like everybody else, there's probably pride in there somewhere. We're all sinful, but I love Mark for that he walks in a lot of, I would call it, humility, at least in the humbleness part of it, and we're all growing in that. That's why I can say that about him in public, is that we're all growing in it, and I esteem that. That's part of the rest characteristics. When we begin to see people walking in that rest, we don't take ourselves that seriously anymore, but we do take ourselves seriously in the kingdom. So anyway, a little bit about Mark and I and our journey, just to bring you into the framework of this idea of rest. I am a little older than Mark, so I do have a little more insight and understanding of what it's like to be tested and tried through the trials. And I've watched him over the years wrestle with, where are you, God? Why aren't you showing up? Why aren't you doing this? This is struggling. I don't, none of you, I'm sure, have those feelings. But in the course of this, he continues to stay the course. That's that Matthew 6, seek the kingdom, regardless of what you can see. Just keep seeking. And that's where it's helpful to have a collection of people like yourselves here, because we encourage one another to that. And so when the word encourage, if you ever look at it, one of the aspects of encourage is to increase it or to multiply it. When you encourage something, it increases. So just think about that when you hear about the word rest here. So the fun part is watching Mark come to a place last year where God broke in with revelation. And a lot of us need that revelation of what does it really mean to enter his rest, because Mark has pounded it. He's written a book. He's done things to really magnify the kingdom. And as he'll share, he'll do it out of, he's really good at isolating the points. He'll say, I've got to do things on my own to get this done for God, not with God, but for God. It's wisdom, strength, and strategy. Pound it out. And that's what good business people do. You get the strategies, you get the, pound it out with power, and you got the wisdom and the experience to kind of pull it all together. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. But then again, there's everything wrong with that. because it's like Gerald was on a couple of weeks ago on the council table, and we were talking about some of the characteristics of a magnificent leader. Those are those people, those are Matthew 6:33 people. I was talking about learning to stand on what you believe. We need Christians with a backbone who have a heart of gold, loving heart, but they need some strength of God's character in there to say, not today, I'm standing on this policy, or I'm standing on this principle. But Gerald shared and said, hey, you got to sit before you stand. And what he meant by that was you got to sit in his presence to get what his will and his ways and his words are for today. So that's where when God, I think, intercepted Mark, I said, and you may remember Paul Harvey years ago, he'd say, and now the rest of the story. Mark, give us the rest of the story.
So I guess I'd start with saying that, I learned in my midway through high school that performance gets the results I want. And I had a massive experience. I won't get into that story that proved that in the world system. If I perform at a certain level, I get the results that I'm looking for, to be happy or to have meaning or validation, whatnot. And so since then, I've just become a make it happen machine. And I love doing that. So the idea of rest, oh my gosh, I don't rest. I don't like to rest, you know? Um, it, I don't take naps, even if I haven't slept, I'd rather just pound an energy drink and press through. And so it's just my personality, it's my energy and all that. And so over the years, the decades, really, I started my own design firm in 2002. And man, you're a self-employed person. You got to make it happen. Nothing comes from nothing. You've got to do it. And of course, I grew up as a missionary kid, so I've been a Christian, since I was 3 years old, and great parents. But my parents were very driven as missionaries. They were extremely driven. So I saw this modeled. And so the way I want to present this today is just how it's not about not doing something. It's about a complete different paradigm shift that has finally, literally last year, just broken through my heart and my whole way of working. And so the idea of rest is God was so when I started my firm in 2002, residential design only, that's all I do. Well, of course, in 2008, the housing market collapse hit, and it just devastated my business. And I have a wife and two kids. The kids were young back then. My wife, Kim, was a stay-at-home mom for, the duration of our children until kind of middle of high school, where she started to work a little bit. But so I was the only breadwinner. It was just me, and my industry, the housing market was dead. I mean, it was dead, and it was going to be in a depression. It was a literal depression. I saw that on the newspaper multiple times for about 4.5 years. And God showed up, but I was in complete panic mode during those years. I mean, just absolutely panicking, because it's like, how do I make something happen in this wilderness? And so that began the really deep, hard work of what God was trying to show me. And that's what I really express in my book, The Hidden Path of Adversity, because there is a hidden path. And that hidden path is what Jesus says in Matthew 7:14. There's a path that leads to life. And that word life is a very, very specific Greek word that means Zoe. And every time, this is really important, every time we see the word life in the Bible, in our modern translations, no matter what language you read, you're going to just see the word life. But in ancient Greek, there were five different words for the word life, and they all have very different meanings and very different implications. So that was a massive beginning point in the revelation, was seeing this word Zoe. Zoe means the life force of God Himself. It's translated as abundant life. But that can still be um, murky and abstract, and it doesn't do one thing. To see the word abundant life doesn't remove our flesh patterns, those things that are built into us, our striving or our baggages that reinterpret abundant life, right? I'll start defining, well, abundant life should look this way. So why is God not doing that? Why don't I have XYZ? Why isn't this working out? Why is this bad? And to understand that Zoe is the life force of God Himself that wells up within us like a spring of living water. It's not about outcomes and circumstances, not outside of us like everything else we're chasing after. From work, money, even ministry is an external thing, okay? Marriage, relationships, children, everything is an external thing, and we keep chasing. And I was trying to orchestrate certain things to work, just enough to pay the bills. I wasn't greedy. I'm just want to pay the bills. That's an external thing. God is saying, hey, I want to do something from the inside that satisfies all your desires. What are our desires? To make money? No, money is a means to an end. To have, happy, perfect relationships, those are still a means to an end. What we desire is what I call the seven core needs. It's joy, peace, security, love, meaning, value, and life-giving relationships. Those are the seven desires we have. And everything else we're involved in, including this call today, this is just a means to an end. Okay? What we're after is what God wants to fulfill in us through His life-giving presence. And if I would have been on this call in the audience and I would heard a person like me saying life-giving presence, I'd be like, what is that? That's, how does that work? It's really fuzzy, but that's the process of what rest reveals. And I want to break out the word rest into an acronym. I hate it when people do the acronyms, but this was a game changer for me. And it was somebody on this, I can't remember his name, Michael something. You're muted.
Yeah, it's Matthew Fleming.
Yeah, he said God was already bringing me into this idea of receiving, right? I had already been like receive everything from Him. And so Matthew said rest stands for receive every single thing. And I was like, that's it. That is absolutely it. That's what rest is to me. See, my mom would always be like, Mark, you need to rest. You need to rest. You need to be still. I'm like, I don't like to do that. I want to do something. I don't want to sit around and what stuff's going to fall out of the sky. No. Resting is this very, very intentional act of realizing God's going to bring it. God's going to do it. He has a plan. As tacky and corny as that sounds, God always has a plan. There's always, for every need any of you have right now, every need, every difficulty, every desire, God has had a plan for that very thing since before you were born. David says, you knew me before you created me in my mother's womb, which means He knows exactly what you desire. He knows exactly how He made you for work, for purpose, for income, for provision, all that. And it makes more sense now. The verse that's so super famous, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. But I love how it's stated there. I know the plans I have for you. God is saying, listen, I got plans for you. I know what they are. I got this, right? And I have to take that concept, Jeremiah 29:11. I have to marry it up with uh, 1 Corinthians 2:9, where Paul says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind can conceive the things that God has for those who love him. So again, oh, God has things for us. He has plans, he has purposes, he has encounters, he has provision. But look at the first three things. You can't conceive of it. It's beyond our comprehension. So I'm a very visual person. Obviously, as an architect, I have to be very, very visual and in a very deep way. And I've always been a deep thinker. Um, and this verse tells me I cannot conceive of what God has for me. So I've had to learn to just get rid of all my thoughts as to what I want the outcome to look like, what I want the thing to be, what is abundant life. I got to zero out what I think that needs to look like because he has said, no mind can conceive the things that God has for those who love him. So no matter where you are, you know, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what you're hoping for, what God has for you in that situation is beyond your comprehension. And I've had to learn to realize that's a really good thing because my so Bill mentioned those things. My wisdom, my strengths, and my strategies. Those are the three things that are just the fuel to my drivenness, the fuel to my striving. I want to figure it out. I love figuring it out. I love just thinking, how this marketing or writing a book or getting more clients, whatever it is, or ministry, how to minister better. I love figuring it out. And I've realized, man, I'm just going to be bumping up against the ceiling of my limited human understanding. My wisdom is so pathetically weak compared to what God wants to do. You know, the Israelites thought, let's get free from this slavery. Great. Love that plan, God. And then the next thing they know, they're pinned in by the Red Sea, the wilderness, and Pharaoh's completely furious army about to destroy them. Like, that's a bad plan, God. How is this the deal? You know, they're like, did we take a wrong turn? Is that the cloud way over there that we didn't follow right? You know, what went wrong? And God's like, no, you're exactly where I want you. Just keep walking, and there's nowhere to go. Like it was a ridiculous statement from God to say, just keep walking. My hunch, it doesn't say that in the scripture, the cloud was out over the water because that's where it eventually went. And they're all like, wait a minute, we don't know how to swim. There were no swimming pools for the slave quarters in Egypt. You know, we don't know how to do this. And God says, keep walking, like literally believe that I am leading you because I said I was going to lead you, not to drown. And so we know the story. The seas parted the next day, but who thinks of that? Not even a crazy person would think of that outcome. And so all the stories in the Bible are showing us the inconceivable ways of what God wants to do in our lives, from children to marriage to health to finances to, you know, attacks. You know, there's a lot of battles in the Bible. Well, you know, I had a battle with a client yesterday that got kind of ugly and I didn't like it, you know, and it was unfair. So here's what I've learned. Resting, receive every single thing. Okay. I'm gonna get real practical because I don't like these, you know, ambiguous conversations about abundant life and striving and all that. I've had to realize I cannot figure my way out of it. I'm a smart guy. I got into Georgia Tech and I graduated for Georgia Tech, and that's a big deal. So I'm not your average person when it comes to intelligence. I can't figure my way out of I couldn't figure my way out of the housing market collapse. That was way bigger than me. And so I've learned to realize God always has a plan for everything in my life, from the big things to the small things and everything in between. It's inconceivable to me. I don't need to figure it out. I don't need to know the details. And another thing, I don't need to tell him what to do. I've done that a lot. Like, Lord, we need money. Okay, maybe. You know, he can do anything, you know? And so I've had to realize, like, okay, I don't need to be carrying these things. I don't, because when I'm trying to figure it out, when I'm trying to make it happen, I'm carrying it. And so that means that I'm under the curse of what I call the Ecclesiastes curse. Okay, that's a term I made up. And it's because the whole book of Ecclesiastes teaches us this one thing. There's a phrase that's mentioned over and over and over again. It's what the whole book of Ecclesiastes is about. Everything under the sun is a vapor and a breath, a chasing after the wind. Everything. Everything is a vapor and a breath, a chasing after the wind. The words vapor and breath mean fleeting and futile. So hang with me. This sounds like a downer, but this is a massively important clue. This is part of the code of how things work. All right, my son is also graduating from Georgia Tech in computer science, and he's a coding machine. He knows how to code and make things happen. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing to see and understand how coding works. And there's all these different softwares out there of coding. Well, there's a code built into us, built into the world system, and built into the kingdom of heaven, okay? And the code is this. Everything that's done under the sun is fleeting and futile. What does that mean? Fleeting means it's short-lived. You have a great day, a good moment, a benefit, a bounty. It's gonna run out. They don't last. Nothing under the sun lasts. Or, like for example, my clients are multi-millionaires. They're super rich. So they have enough money to be able to stack all the better outcomes and pleasant circumstances and positive results under the sun they want. But then it's fleeting. It's futile. They can have all the enjoyment and pleasure and safety they want, and they still are empty. They're still thirsty, to use the words Jesus says. Jesus says he's the one that quenches our thirst. His life-giving presence quenches our thirst. That's John 6:33 through 35. He came down from heaven to give life to the world. That's Zoe life. Whoever believes in me, he says, will not hunger, and whoever comes to me will not thirst. So get this, everything under the sun is fleeting and futile. It won't satisfy our 7 core needs. There's not enough money and positive results that we can experience, no matter how wealthy we are, no how much we stack it, that will keep us happy and safe and at peace and all those 7 needs, right? It'll always run out. We will always be thirsty again, usually in a matter of hours. Okay. That's a curse across the whole world. And that applies, by the way, to ministry as well. You can minister to the best of your abilities. It's still fleeting and futile. You will be left empty some days, disappointed, betrayed. It'll happen. It just happens. That's a curse under the sun. Everything we do in our natural mindedness, in our natural ways, and I'm not even talking about the sinful stuff. The sinful stuff is sinful. We know that. I'm talking about everything you do with the best of intentions, the most godly motives. If it comes from your wisdom, your strength, your strategies, it's under that curse. Again, doesn't mean you committed a sin. It's just the way it is. That's the code of this world. And so I kept bumping into that and just, man, what is going on? What am I missing here? Or I was a little bit harsher on myself, like, what am I doing wrong? Or what am I not getting right? And again, that whole question just goes back to, I got to figure it out. I need to make it happen. And the big breakthrough was just this past summer, realizing, you know what? I need to not do this anymore. I just need to receive whatever it is he has for me in every situation. And I have, again, I'm a very visual person. I have to do this. This is the practical way of doing this. I think it's Philippians 4 says, present your needs, present your desires, present your requests to God, right? And so I take everything that I'm dealing with. Let me get my hands in the screen here. I put my hands in front of me like this, like I'm carrying a baby. Whatever the issue is, a good thing or a hard thing, a small thing or a big thing, I'm like, Jesus, here's this issue. This is what's going on. This is how I feel about it. If it's a bad thing, I'm like, there's anxiety. Like that client deal yesterday, man, I did not like that. It didn't feel good. Carried it all day until last night. I don't like this anxiety. I don't like this worry. I don't like this, I feel like I got screwed. I don't like this. And I say, or if it's a good thing, like here's an opportunity, a big potential client. Man, it'd be great to have this deal. Big dollar signs, big kind of reputation. Lord, here's this opportunity, here's this pain, here's this struggle, here's this need. And I give it to you. I give it to you. I ask you to carry it for me because that's what he wants to do. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. I will give you rest. He says his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Why? Because he's carrying it. He wants to carry everything, our pain, our decisions, our hopes. He wants to carry it. And I say, Lord, I give it to you. I ask you to carry it. And then this is the final statement. This is where I give it over. I say, and I receive whatever you have for me. Now, at that point, I have to very intentionally, it took me about a year to really figure out how to do this, is don't put any expectation. Don't say, I receive you whatever you have for me, but I hope it looks like this, or I hope it turns out that way, or I hope you do this. That's telling God what to do in the second, and it could be so subtle, so unconscious, almost subconscious. I have to just stop that because when I'm starting to tell him, or at least kind of feel it, you got to get really real with your feelings. What's your motive? What's going on in your heart? Like, man, I sure hope it's this way. I sure hope this happens. Well, then we're saying, God, I got this. I know what the outcome needs to look like. And that pushes God out of the way. That's where I jump in and I start carrying it again. If I start visualizing and thinking and ruminating about what I want the outcome to look like or what I hope the outcome looks like. It's taken me a lot of work to stop doing that because it's just my nature of like, how's this going to work? How am I going to figure this out? I got to stop doing that because that's me taking the thing back and carrying it in my own wisdom, in my own strength. Because I like doing that, but I've had to realize that is a dead end road, and I'm just tired of where I end up every time when I try to do it that way. And guys, oh my gosh, I'm telling you, I mean, Bill stuck me in this Wednesday from literally last week because we've been on the phone a few times, and I'm like, it's a game changer, my man. It's just unbelievable how if I just give it to him, then the outcomes are heavenly. See, that's the difference between outcomes under the sun and receiving from heaven. Because it's not about the outcomes that's the difference. It's what's the source of the outcome? What's the source of what we receive? What's the source of what we get? If it's of the world system, again, I'm not talking about sinful stuff. I'm just saying just daily, I made a phone call and a builder says, hey, yeah, I'd love to work with you. If I did that out of my own wisdom, it's just under the sun and it's going to be under that curse. Yes, sir.
Sorry. We got about 5 minutes before the end of the hour. And
Okay.
I know you've got some examples of this too. So I would love to hear some of those stories, like a few weeks ago when Dylan wanted you to go into this master AI marketing campaign, stuff like that. That'd be really good. But also just to announce to everybody else, we're close to that time, but just know that I will keep the video going. And if there's any hot burning question you got, you can hold them, but just raise your hand. I'm sure Mark would be glad to do that too. But that's where we'll, as soon as he tells us a story or two, then we'll go into that Q&A. So good. All right. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Bill. So to wrap up my thought there, I only now want to receive whatever God has from his heavenly kingdom because it's purified. It's not under that curse that it's fleeting and futile, chasing after the wind. It's heavenly. It came from his kingdom. Like Jesus said, I came down from heaven to give life because you can't get life from anything under the sun. And so, yeah, a couple examples. I'll try to do them real quick. I'll do a really big one. I've shared this one, I think, before. The pandemic hits in 2020, same thing like 2008. Everybody says, stop what you're doing. No one's going to design a dream home when we don't know, if the zombie apocalypse is going to happen across the world. So my income goes to zero. But this time we'd already been through what God had shown us. And my wife and I were like, all right, let's just pray. And it was simple, like, Lord, you know what's going on. We don't know how bad this is. And we just receive what you have for us. Well, that was the year our daughter graduated from high school and was going to college. So I was going to have to write a big tuition check in August of 2020. And we had the money, but it's going to be a big check and we're at zero. So we're living 100% off of our savings. Well, a week later, after praying that, my wife gets a letter in the mail from Nokia saying, hey, call us about your pension. Well, we think it's a scam because she never worked for Nokia. She had worked for AT&T Lucent Technologies, but she quit in 2000. So this is a 20-year later thing, okay? And so we get on the phone. We're like, hey, what's the deal? She never worked for Nokia. Why are you calling about this? Well, she worked for Lucent, right? Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't know this. Nokia bought Lucent Technology in 2016. And they said she was automatically enrolled back when she worked for them to a pension. And the lady literally says, I just want to know where to send the $42,000 that we have sitting in this pension account. All right, guys, that's a massive, yeah. Here's what's really crazy about it. On top of that, for our daughter, we didn't know this, but it's IRA money, so you can't just spend it. You get a penalty, except that there's a loophole that you can spend it on higher education without paying penalties. So right there, we just knew like God was earmarking our daughter's education where nothing was going to come out of our paycheck for that. It was amazing. But another thing is, this was in play for 20 years. None of us knew this pandemic was coming until like late 2019 or 2020. But for 20 years, God had this plan for us. All right. So that's the big one. But we have tons of stories like that about architecture, cars, our home, all kinds of things like that. But then what Bill was alluding to was this. So I've always been trying to figure out an evergreen marketing strategy, like something that just brings clients in. Like I would have, a flow of clients to where I don't have to worry about, because my business has always been this ridiculous roller coaster of feast or famine, feast or famine, feast or famine, because I don't have any consistency of clients because I'm a small firm. It's just me and my wife now. And I was just always trying to figure out a marketing strategy. So I started trying to do a couple of things this past summer. One that Bill's alluding to is my son showed me this system that's kind of like a done for you AR marketing. And I looked into it and I had already enough experience to say, like, okay, this looks like a pretty good deal. And it was only going to cost, how much was it? $99 a month. Like that's nothing. And if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't, okay, I'm out a few $100 and I know it doesn't work. And I literally was about to click the pay button. And I just sensed God like, really? You're gonna count on that? And I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. Because I knew without a shadow of a doubt, receiving from him was the lesson he's been teaching me. Receive everything, clients, business, everything. And I was like, okay, Lord, this is an easy button to click. For $99 a month, that's an easy button to click. I could just try it out. No harm, no foul, right? I said, you know what? All right, I'm game. I'm in. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to put all this down. And I mean, this was like the 10th, approach to marketing that I've done. And I was like, I'm just not going to do it. And I clicked out, I closed it all before I applied. And I mean, it has been a fire hose since then, a business. I mean, it's been nuts. It's been crazy. And it's just been this response of God saying, yes, just receive it. Just receive it. I got this for you. I called you into architecture. I saved you during the housing market collapse. I saved you during the pandemic. It's the same thing. Like God is always telling the Israelites, remember how I saved you. Remember how I did this. Remember how I brought you out of slavery. Remember how I brought you through the Red Sea. Just believe in me is what he's teaching me. And so that's the fundamental statement is believing in God more than our circumstances, believing in God more than our need, believing in God more than our hopes for an outcome. And I want to do that thing again. Just put your desire in your hands. Say, Jesus, here it is. This is the thing I'm, thinking about, worried about. I ask you to carry it and I receive whatever you have for me. And I mean, from an ugly phone call to a potential client, it has been a game changer of results that has given me the most peace I've ever had in my life. I mean, it is ridiculous. And I know that hardship will happen down the road. Jesus promises that in this world, you will have trouble and tribulation. But I can take heart, just like he said, because I know he's overcome the world. and he has outcomes. Right now, there's some crazy miracle that's already in the works for some hardship I don't even know about yet. And I'm going to believe in that. And I'm going to receive it because I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And I now realize that's his desire. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added on to you. And it's like, oh, yeah, he meant that so literally. It's not just some weird, fuzzy, spiritual, I don't know what to do with kind of verse, you know? It's literal. It's day to day. It's about everything. From a business idea to a bad client or a hard day or health. I mean, seriously, anytime, just take it to him. Say, I ask you to carry this, and I'll receive whatever you have for me.
Boom. That's awesome, bro. I have this thing queued up for the rest that you dreamed, or it was a dream, or was it a vision that you had about the newspaper with REST in it?
Oh yeah, that was a vision when I was praying to God. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show it real quick. I thought that was pretty cool too. Can y'all
Yeah,
see
this is
that?
like 2021. I just visualized, I recreated this, and it was this like kind of weird old newspaper. I don't know why. I have no understanding why, but the word rest was like with red backlight like that. But then since then I've seen how it says remember right next to it. We have to remember what God has done. We have to remember how he has led us through our lives to see his works, to see his might, to see his love, and to just be at rest, to receive every single thing from him.
Amen. It's awesome, Mark. Thank you, brother. Anything percolating in your brain or your heart that you'd like to share right now? Love to hear it. Feedback, comments, questions. Mark loves a good question. Mark loves some challenges.
I just
I
wanted to echo some of the
okay.
challenges. Sometimes when you learn how to hear from God, there might be times when you go, man, I wish I didn't know how to hear from God. Because I have those moments like Mark, described where it's like it seems so logical. It's only $99. And then you make
Mhm.
the mistake and you either hear because he interrupts what you're doing, or you actually make the mistake of asking and he says no, and you go, but that doesn't make any sense.
Right, right,
And that
right.
comes the test of obedience. And it's a beautiful thing to be in that space where you're willing to challenge what doesn't seem logical, to see how God takes what looks stupid and foolish and presents something really brilliant that we had no idea. So just wanted to echo that with you there, Mark. I feel your pain, brother.
Absolutely. Pain and joy.
Pain and joy.
But the pain is always just when I start doing it myself, man. When I just start like thinking I got this, and I don't think that consciously. I'm just going to do what makes sense. And then I'm like, oh, no, 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 stop that, stop that, stop that. All right, Lord, here's the thing. I'll ask you to carry it, and I receive what you have for me. Charlotte.
I was just thinking of how all of a sudden my husband got sick and was dead 19 days later.
Mm,
I was not expecting that at all. But yet, the whole way through, it's like, do you trust me? Do you trust me? I trust you, Lord. I don't understand it and I hate it. I don't want to do this,
right,
but I trust you. And let me just tell you, He has carried me. I have felt hope like never before.
right.
He's led me to find this place to share my art. He's put me into another business that's going to bring health and wealth. I'm thinking, only God, only
Yeah,
God. And then
yeah,
he sent my good friend Bill to come and encourage me and say, yeah, there it is.
yeah.
So,
you know, and one of the things you keep using the word hope. Don't you have? I saw it up on the picture that you with you and Michelle, and you have the hope ship, right?
yes, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're living,
One-
you're embodying the very essence of hope.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
The Hope
What?
Ship's dream was 1/11/11, and every year on January 11, God does something. Ever since 2011, He's done something supernatural to show me, hey, I'm still in charge. I orchestrated all of this. I'm the divine orchestrator of all things. So I have constant peace and hope no matter what happens. It's like I was put into that in a hotel with nobody around. And the Lord says the next morning, well, let's just go downtown and look around downtown. And he shows me this blue, BLEU art gallery. And the guy, I was telling him, I said, well, my art's a little bit different. It's kind of got a story about it. He says, I said, I just draw my dreams. And he
That's
said,
great.
nobody has anything like that in here. I'm interested. A man drinking with alcohol on his breath, which I hate.
And I want to say a word about the word hope. Hope, I don't know if it's just me, but hope is always like, oh, I hope something happens. It's in the future and maybe, maybe not, don't know. I'm hoping for it, right? But I love, Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. Assurance, certainty, and the conviction of things not seen. All right. So, I mean, that's not some mamby-pamby, maybe it will, maybe it won't, maybe it's this life, maybe it's the next life. I don't know. It's assurance. Now, I got to caveat it with this. I got to be careful not to start attaching all my definitions and pictures and outcomes of what I'm hoping for, right? Now I realize, oh, I just have to believe that what God has for me is
Yes.
better than anything I could ask or imagine. And I don't have to tell him what to do. I don't have to hope on some, like, fixate my heart's desires on a certain outcome. For example, I would love to live near the ocean. I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I love the Caribbean Ocean. I'd love to live near the ocean. I can't afford that. It's so out of reach, it's not even funny. I have a hope for it. And I was planning, like, how do I get to Florida, man? How do I get I need a business funnel in Florida so I can do that. Now I'm like, Lord, you know my desires. I believe you had me grow up in the Caribbean for a purpose, a reason. You know that I love your ocean creation, Could care less about the woods. I hate lakes, all that stuff. I love the ocean. I don't know. I'm just going to let him. I just keep, oh, anytime I feel that desire, I'm like, Lord, I just receive what you have for me when whatever that could look like.
Awesome. Some people haven't shared. I know, Laura Lee, I know you've been through some kind of circumstances like this recently. You want to just share just a little bit your focus on Italy and some of the.
Yeah. Well, like I think I texted you, I didn't think I had the time to come today, but I saw that we're going to be talking about rest. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to hear this, because just lately I realized I'd love to hear you speak, Mark, about fear, because I realize that the pressure of deadlines is can make me so anxious and fearful. And when I feel it, I can yield it to the Lord, but it seems to persist. I'm wondering if there's something deeper that God wants to heal in me, that's this fear-based thing to do with time.
Right, right, right. Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I have a lot to say about that. So, because my whole business is based on deadlines, and right now I have 20 clients, and they all think they're the only one. And so when I have these projects, everybody wants their stuff ASAP. And it's just so many hours in the day, and I don't have a huge team. I don't want to afford a huge team. And I've learned just in the past few weeks, Bill knows one of my clients who's a very demanding person, very demanding. And his project is massive, a 20,000 square foot house.
Wow.
And I just have to say, Jesus, this client, a narcissist, absolutely through and through. I just like, Lord, you know who he is, you know his heart, you know his problems. I ask you to carry him, and I receive what you have for me. Well, in the process, this goes back as far back as 2021. God has been building a team because I use contractors that are they're draftsmen, right? That's one of the big elements that we do. We do CAD drafting and then 3D modeling. I do the design work and the client management. And God brought an unbelievable team to me in 2021. I mean, it was a miracle. I could tell you a miracle story, but it just hear me on that. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have these guys. This is unbelievable.
Mm.
And they are so fast and they are so good and they help me deliver in ways that I'm just like, this is a miracle. Now,
Mm.
here's what's interesting about them. They all live in Kyiv, Ukraine, right? And so in 2021, everything was honky dory. I think it was 22 when Russia attacked
Wow.
Ukraine. And I went into panic mode, like, oh my gosh, Lord, I can't believe this. They're going to get killed. They're going to get, they're going to get so, Putin and his army was literally about to overrun
Mm.
Kyiv. And then he backed off, thank God. But here's what's interesting about it. There was a blessing in the turmoil.
Hmm.
Now, no one will work with anybody in Ukraine because of the uncertainty. I
Wow.
get this guy all to myself, his only client. He answers only to me. And they're 7 hours ahead. So I'll deliver like, updates and drawings and markups. And like the next morning when I wake up, it's done. Like work is literally getting done while I sleep, while I rest.
Mm.
Literally. And I could never have conceived of that outcome. Never.
Mm.
I could have never have I mean, I was
Mhm.
always resistant to overseas people because they don't know how to design homes. They don't do it the same we do.
Mm.
And so it's just been mine. And I know that it's a gift. God, like, here's this guy. And he has a wife and a kid. And so I'm able to pay him an incredible salary in a
Oh,
war-torn country and,
wow.
and support them. And yeah, the missiles keep landing, Kyiv gets hit on a regular basis. I'm always checking, like, you guys okay? And but it's just been unbelievable. I mean, and to the extent that builders here in the United States that I'm designing these homes, they build it. They're like, man, Mark, you guys have the best drawings, the best construction documents. They're like so detailed. Like I had a builder the other day. This is unheard of.
Mhm.
Saying the whole house got framed, and his framers never called him about, hey, what do we do here? He's like, he's like, that's pretty amazing because
It
the
is.
drawings are so detailed.
Mm.
I,
Only God.
I can attest.
I
I
mean,
can,
I have to say, God gave me a project manager, which I never expected, and he's brilliant. He is doing so much. He has taken over half of this Venice, Italy thing. Thank the Lord.
Yeah, yeah.
And
share what that is, though. I don't know if people have really captured in their
uh,
head the magnitude or and the importance of what you're about to step into, which you've been doing for
it's
30 some years.
if any of you have heard of the Venice Biennale, it's every 2 years. It's this worldwide art event that is like in the art world, one of the high places of the art world, which is really woke, dark, and but God wants his kingdom there, right? And so he's given me all these connections over there, like all these Christians that have been praying for 20 years for God to send his kingdom over there through Christian artists. And so I see God's hand all over this. I mean, he provided a huge amount of money right at the front end. And I did enter into rest, at least in that part about the money. I'm praying that my husband will enter into rest because he's not. But the and I will definitely replay what you said, Mark, and because this is one huge thing. The reason it's so complicated is because the work consists of four major pieces. But Keith has taken over the custom crate and all the shipping. I mean, it's just incredible. I could never do this if he hadn't overtaken that part of it. It's really very complicated. They've
Right.
anyway.
So let's do something.
Uh,
Let's do an exercise here. I
yeah.
want to do an exercise. Let's
Okay.
make this practical. Everybody here in the call, think about the
Yeah.
one big hot button right now. What's your biggest need, your biggest struggle? Conceptualize it, you know? And that's the thing I want you to do. Put it in your hands here, like, Lord, here's this thing, you
Mhm.
know, voice it, and say, Jesus, I want you to carry this. I ask you to carry this, and I receive whatever you have for me.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, from now on, from this point forward, every time an emotion comes up, or like an anxiety comes up, or a remembrance of some sort, do it again. Just say, no, Lord, I'm not going to carry this. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not saying don't do anything. If you have to do some things like, schedule a meeting, call somebody,
Mhm.
Do those things. Always do what's before you, right?
Right.
But always saying, Jesus, I just ask you to carry this. And I always have to believe, like, you got this amazing, inconceivable plan for me, and I just want that. I want to receive that plan, you know?
Right.
So sometimes I'm doing this thing like 10 times a day here in my office, that one client that I was referring to. I mean, it's just, he'll call, he'll text, email. He's very demanding. So every time all right, Lord, I'm going to get on a call with Charlie. I just, I I ask you to carry his narcissism, his demandingness, and I just receive what you have for me. And I'm telling you, it's that deal is going better than I could have imagined.
Mm.
Now, it doesn't mean that something could go haywire.
Mhm.
There is trouble and tribulation in this life. Daniel's a great, so I have to think of Daniel.
Mhm.
Daniel's story begins in the worst experience you could possibly imagine. The Israelites get conquered, he's taken away, he's most likely a eunuch, so that's a horrible thing. And yet, he's obeying God, he's receiving God's will, his plans, he's obedient, and God just keeps doing the craziest miracles over and over and over again in his life. So it doesn't mean it's going to be honky-dory, bed of roses, no problems, no tribulation. No, that's guaranteed in this life. But Jesus is saying, I've overcome that, and I have a plan that will give you peace in it. Just believe in me more than your circumstances. That's one of my code statements. Believe in God more than my circumstances. Believe in God more than the outcome. Believe in God more than whatever.
Mhm.
Can I tag on to that? Maybe for Laurie, and
Mhm.
it's what the Lord showed me is a formula. If you need a formula, or kind of like a checklist of
Right.
doing exactly what Mark's talking about, putting it on the altar. Back when I started my own construction company, it's a whole different story. I didn't intend to start my own construction company, but by God's what I call carrot theology, I was just following this carrot and all this booth. Then I'm starting this company. Anyway, in the first few months, I got a project to bid, what they call an estimate or bid, and you have to put it in at a certain time of day, and if you miss that by 1 minute, you're out, no matter how good your bid is. So I'm really anxious, I'm really worried, I'm trying to I got two kids and one on the way. Just not fun, and I'm driving the people around me nuts. And they said, "Well, why don't you just leave, and we'll get this done?" Because I was just watching over them, and it's like, oh, we're gonna. Because I'd been in the big corporations. We built the Atlanta Stadium, we built a lot of stuff, and so now I've got my own company, and I'm just anyway. So he kind of got my attention when he says, "Bill, your anxiety is like adultery to me." And that was a big deal to me. Wow. I said, "Okay, whoops, I'm done." I said, "So what do I do?" And he took me to Philippians 4.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the I won't read it all, but it says, "Therefore, brethren, whom I love," this is in the Amplified, "whom I love and long for, my delight and crown." It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always, delight and take pleasure in God." Again, I say rejoice. Okay, in the middle of all that anxiety, apparently rejoice. So you can go down through there, but let me list out the 1, 2, 3s that he gave me. The first one was recognize when we're anxious, which usually our emotions are really good about that. Hey, so that's pretty good. Number 2, take that problem, like Mark's saying, and in the verse it says, with your prayer and supplication, bring it to God. So I imaged in that moment this bid and put it on the altar. Mm-hmm. So, take what I would, like Mark says, take some piece of paper, whatever represented, and I'd put it out there on a desk or something, say, "God, there it is. You take it, partner." Now, that doesn't mean we're done. There's this tension here. What do I do?
Yeah.
That's the action point. Mm-hmm. And so after placing it, Mark hit it which I included in this verse. I just sent it to one of my family members recently because of some of the stuff they're going internally in their family. And it says in the verse, it says, when you put it on the altar, it says the peace of God will be with you.
Not the piece of the outcome.
But the
I
peace
want
of
the
God.
outcome to give me peace.
So Lord, and when I realize that peace hasn't come yet, I've only put it halfway on the altar.
Yeah.
There's probably something still left that I'm holding on to. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
until the peace comes, keep putting it up there. If it's fallen off some way, you just keep putting it up there. Here was the beautiful thing for me. So I went back into the room after getting this to my folks that were putting the estimate together. My job, my role, my responsibility, my duty, whatever you want to say, was to do these various things that were listed in the Amplified. Whatever's honorable, whatever's respectful, whatever's worthy, whatever's excellent, whatever's praiseworthy, wholesome, lovely, and of good reputation. So I go into that estimate, I'm doing whatever's honorable. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's my job. Keep my heart pure before the Lord and before the people. That's all I got to do. The outcome, like Mark's saying, is out there somewhere. That I'm trusting him because I put it on the altar. And what I love in the next verse, this is my translation. You read it for yourself. I've twisted it a little bit, but I believe it's in there. It says that once I put it on there and I got the peace and I'm doing my thing, it says the God of peace, not the peace of God, but the God of peace will go before me to resolve what I've just put on the altar.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So I love that verse for that. I've manipulated it. I'm using those words intentionally to say, read it for yourself, but that's what I've gained out of it and the way he taught me. And it really works for me. So it helps.
And in both those examples, Laura Lee, you have a time constraint, you have a time issue. You had a time, like there was a literal hard cutoff.
There was a hard stop.
But guess what? We have a story in the Bible where God stopped time so that the Israelites had more time to win the battle. Now, I'm not saying he's going to stop time again. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. He can do anything. He can do anything. One more, I'll give you another passage in the Bible. It's a really kind of hidden story because it's not about doing nothing. So the king of Israel, Judah, and another guy were all they had to team together because another bigger king was going to attack. They knew it was going to happen. So they all said, hey, we got to attack first by surprise or we don't stand a chance. And the only way to do that was to walk through a wilderness for 3 days with their armies. And that's the only way they would gain the element of surprise. They're like, okay, we got to go do this. Well, 2 days in, they realized we miscalculated. We don't have enough water and food to make it. And the soldiers once they arrived, would be just weak and depleted and they would just get slaughtered. Okay. And so there's still like a whole day out. Still, the enemy king doesn't know it's coming yet. And I think it's the king of Judah says, "Is there not a prophet in the land?" And it's either Elijah or Elisha. I get those two guys. I can't remember. I can't keep their story straight. And they find him. A servant knows. Oh yeah, he's right around here. And so they go to Elijah, I think it's Elisha, and they say, "Hey, we're in bad shape. Like we're going to get slaughtered, and all our families are going to be everything's going to get plundered." I mean, it's epically life or death, worst case scenario. And Elisha says, "Here's what you do." He's standing out there. There's this valley that's just dry. It's bone dry. He said, "Start digging holes. For tomorrow, this valley will be a lake." And then he attaches, "Oh, by the way, and you will win." Well, let's stop and think about, I always do this. The only way there's water is if there's green stuff. If there's no green stuff, there's no water to dig. Like digging the holes was nothing. That was just, all right, I'm going to test you and see if you believe. If you obey because these guys knew the well, didn't they? They're like, what are we digging for? There's no water here. They knew that. Like God was testing their obedience. And so they dug holes. Next day, it's a lake, and they replenish and they win. And Elisha says this, to turn a wilderness into a lake, he says, for that is a simple thing to the Lord. I love those words, man. It's like, oh my gosh. any miraculous outcome unthinkable to us is a simple thing to the Lord.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to look that story up again. Because I'm not familiar with that story. But thank you. Yeah, just thank you both. I am definitely going to practice this. Um, Here's one little more thought that I have about it. Like for the last, it just seems like day after day, something happens that is absolutely steals the day away. Like yesterday, I had to help my husband with Verizon and these bills. And it just seems like demonic, frankly. Um, and that just made me so anxious. But, uh, and I am praying daily in the morning. I'm praying, spending a lot of time with the Lord and praying for protection, pleading the blood over my time and circumstances. So I don't know why these things keep happening. Um, but that I thought, okay, I am having a real issue with anxiety. This is crazy. This has got to stop. So,
Yeah, that means, and I'm just going to speak for myself. When I'm feeling that anxiety, that means I'm carrying it because I'm thinking I have to do this. I have to figure it out. And just like
right.
Bill is saying, I'm pulling it back. And so God is like, oh, okay, okay, well, okay, good luck with that, and God lets our free will take over, So every time I feel anxiety, every time I feel any of those negative feelings, or even opportunity, I love opportunity. I'm very optimistic. I got to be like, no, 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 Lord, I give it to you. I just receive your outcome in this matter.
Right.
Amen.
I put the passage. It's Second Kings, and this is just the part of the miracle 3. 2 Kings 3 is where the story is. 16 through 20 is in the chat.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna give you a good report next week, Bill.
Amen. Well, you already have. I love seeing the marketing thing that you sent to me. That was good.
Oh,
That's good.
well, that's Keith, that's thanks to Keith. Oh my gosh, so much of this is God, just like you were talking about your team. It's just incredible to me, the people that God has sent my way. He sent me years ago at a prayer meeting when a prophet had this vision, and she said, I see all these little people coming to you. And then I realized that when God was sending me, probably I maybe 8, 10 people that were just volunteering, coming. Like this great web designer said he wanted to do my website for free. I
Yeah,
mean, just
that happened to me. I have a killer website that has top SEO that was
yeah.
done for me for free. It's crazy.
Ah,
Right.
so God has done so much. I am so grateful. So and I loved your word. I mean, quite honestly, that word you used about that anxiety is like spiritual adultery. I
Yep.
want to be free from this, Father, so I'm going to do whatever it takes, as often as it takes, to surrender this and to continue to yield and surrender.
Yep.
I just need your help.
Amen.
Yep.
That's always looking for it. All right, let's do this. Great stuff. And I know, like Laura Bowl, I know you're sitting there. You've got a whole bowl full of stuff you can share with us in that area with your book, Living in the Yes.
Aw.
And we'll hopefully maybe the next time if you're on, we'll get a chance to hear more from you. But anyway, so many incredible people. I'd rather, if we can, unless there's something burning, I'd like to move towards prophetic prayer because I know Mark's got to leave in a little bit.
Okay.
Y'all been great to stay on. As I said before, I'll stay as long as we need, but some of you need to jump off. I usually like to pray for the co-host first, and what we do. Oh, and let me. Hey, thanks for coming. I'm gonna turn off the recording. Bye bye.